Hello and welcome to this video where you learn how to get Twitter analytics into Notion. Likes, retweets, engagement rate, follower growth. All of this and more is easily possible with this method. And best of all, it's completely free. You don't need any paid tools to do this. If you've never built an automation before, don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it step by step. If you want to download the free Notion template, you can do so with a link in the description. Down there, you will also find the timestamps if you want to look for a specific thing. And now, let's get started.
So let's get started with our build. Now, the first thing in order to get our Twitter analytics into Notion is that we need to create a database that will store all our tweets and then the stats that we want to export from Twitter. In order to do this, we just start on a fresh new Notion page and we're going to type /database to create an inline database. And then we are quickly setting up all the properties that we need. So this will be our tweets database. And we want the first property for the tweet itself. So we can quickly rename this to tweet. And then for this simple demonstration, we're just going to grab the likes and the retweets, but we can also grab a whole lot more if we want to. And one more thing, we for sure want the date of the tweet so that we know when we tweeted it. Now, two number properties, so one for likes and one for our retweets. Oops, retweets, great. That's the simplest setup for this database. Again, we can do it a lot more complex, but just for the sake of this presentation to show you how the automation will work, this is enough. So now that we have this database set up, let's think about how we can get our tweets from Twitter into Notion. So in terms of automations, we have a few options to pick from. There are a lot of tools and a lot of really great tools, but for our specific situation where we want to build like a very beginner-friendly automation that's also free to use, I would recommend a tool called Bardeen. Now, Bardeen is an automation tool that lives in your browser. So it is a Chrome-based extension, and you can add it to your browser. And the cool thing about Bardeen is that Bardeen will execute automations right here locally in your browser. Whereas a lot of other tools like Zapier or Make, they will use cloud computing, so like they will use the cloud to perform the automations, which means you need to pay for their computing power. So a lot of the more advanced things, or like the ones that use a lot of resources, are paid, whereas here everything is free right now because it just runs locally on your browser. And it's very easy to put together, so I would recommend you use it. I'll link it to it in the description, and once you've added it to your browser, you can just click on it to start the extension, and then this is what you'll see. And the playbook is Bardeen's name for normal automation, and that's exactly what we want to start with, right? We want to get our tweets, the things that I tweeted about, from Twitter into Notion. So to do that, we're going to create a playbook, and we're going to pick the first app. And the first app in this case would be Twitter, because that's where the information lives, and we want to get it out of Twitter into Notion. Now, I already integrated with Twitter, so I see it already in the site. But if you don't see there, just hit the plus icon and then scroll down until you see Twitter, add it, and go through the authentication steps to verify that you actually do have a Twitter account. Now, if you have it added, you can just click on it, and then you want to browse the options for find tweets. You see there are a bunch of things that you can do with Bardeen in Twitter, but we want to get our tweets right and then add them somewhere else. So I'm going to click on this, and this will bring up a few more fields for me to specify. The first thing I need to do is I need to tell Bardeen, okay, what text should it look for, right? What sort of tweets should it look for? And as of now, unfortunately, I can't leave this empty, so I need to just enter a space. And unless you tweet one word tweets without space, that should work. If you're in a different situation, then you might need to look for a different way to specify what exactly it is you want to pull. And then we also need to specify the author. And for that, we are just going to type my Twitter handle, or whoever Twitter handle you want to access. And it will pull it up, type it without the ad, otherwise it doesn't find the person, and then you click on it. And that's pretty much it. Last but not least, you need to specify the number of tweets. Now, Bardeen will always go from the newest back, so it will always grab your new tweets, but you need to tell it how many, right? There's unfortunately, as of now, no way to just tell them, well, all the ones that you didn't extract last time. So the way to think about that number is we're going to later schedule this automation to run once a day, every 2 days, or twice daily, depending on your use. And you want to make sure that the number here is so high that it definitely captures all your tweets that you might post in that duration. And in terms of tweets, it also will count answers or replies to other tweets. So make sure that you account for that as well. So if you tweet 5 to 6 times a day, I would recommend to put this number to 8 if you do daily, right? Take your number, add like 10-20% safety margin, and then you're good to go. In my case, I just go with 5. And then we can click on done. Now we can quickly test this to just make sure that it works properly by giving this a name, then clicking on done, and then to run a playbook, we always just click on it. And then Bardeen will run the background, and we see these are the tweets that it pulled in, and that tells us it worked properly, and we can now continue building the automation. So to do that, we're going to click on the 3 dots again, click on Open in Builder, and add a second step. Now, because Bardeen will pull in just all like a random number of tweets every time, and we can't tell Bardeen to just pull in new tweets, we need to make sure that we don't add duplicates to our Notion database. And we can do that by simply checking first whether a certain entry already exists or not. And to do so, we're going to first give Bardeen access to our database. So we're going to go back to Notion, and then we're going to click on the 3 dots, and then on Add Connection, and then on Bardeen. Now, if you don't see Bardeen here, that's probably because you haven't integrated with Bardeen at all yet. But you can simply get there by clicking on the 3 dots here. And then if you are in the builder and you click on the plus icon, new action, and then don't see Notion here, right? You click on plus again, look for Notion, add Notion, authorize Notion, and then you can go back to your Notion page and add Bardeen here through the integration to give it access to this specific page and database. All right, so let's go back to automation and add as a second action the Notion step to look for existing database entry. So we're going to pick the Find Notion Database, Notion Page in Database option, and we're going to tell it to look in our Tweets database. So as you can see, the first action to do is to pick the database where it's supposed to look, and that will then pull up all the properties from that database to do some querying. Now, in our case, I want to match the text of the tweet. So I'm going to click into here, and now it pulls up a bunch of options, and among these options is our action 1, right? Everything that it found in step 1. So I can click on here and then tell it, well, please use the tweet text and see whether that matches the title. Now you could do something else, right? You could also look for the specific URL or something like that. Oh, that actually reminds me, we forgot to add that to our database. So let's quickly pop back in here and add a URL property. So tweet link, and then we're good to go. Okay. So let's go back here, just make sure it's set up correctly. So we are going to look in our tweets database, and we're going to find the tweets where it matches the text. And of course, at the first step, when we add tweets for the first time, nothing will happen. It won't find anything, but it's okay. What we need is for us the next step in our automation, and that's another Notion action where we now actually create the entry in Notion. In this case, we're going to add the option Update or Add Notion Page to Database. And what this allows us to do is to tell Bardeen, well, if you found a Notion page in the previous step right here, then just update it. So don't create a new record. But if you don't find anything, please create a new record. And that way we won't have any duplicate entries in our database. So let's go to Update or Add Notion Page. And again, we're going to pick our Tweets database. And now we have to map data. So we need to tell it like, where is that information coming from? So for the date, we're going to click in here and we're going to say, well, go to Find Tweets and please pick the date created of the tweet. For the likes, don't do anything because we haven't grabbed that yet. Retweets, nothing as well. So because if you go in here, right, for Find Tweets, you see that none of the fields that the action grabbed was the like. So with the Find Tweet action, we won't get the like, but we will get it in another step. For now, all we want is the date the tweet was created, the tweet itself, so the text, and then the tweet link, so the, oops, not here, the link to the tweet. And then last but not least, Bardeen will ask us, okay, what's the thing that should be updated in case we found it? The UI here is a bit confusing right now, but once you understand how it works, it's pretty self-explanatory. So basically, we're going to go in here and we're going to pick the previous action. So, oops, let's see whether we can action 2. Yes, I don't know why it doesn't let me scroll here, but we want to go in the page that it found like previously or didn't, and then just click on done. And now what it will do is once we run it, it will find our last tweets, check whether one of these tweets already matches an entry in Notion. And depending on that, it will either create a new record or update the existing record, aka not do anything. And then we click on done, and now we can run this playbook and see what happens. So this one's now in the background, and we can go to our Notion database, and there they are. We have all our tweets in here together with the proper links. Awesome. Now, before we move on to the next step and actually grab our analytics from Twitter and add them to Notion, just a quick reminder that if you like this video so far, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the channel and want to learn more about Notion, automations, and all the really cool things that you can do with that, consider subscribing to the channel. That really helps me out a lot. And with that out of the way, let's jump right back in. Now, in order to get the analytics for our individual tweets, we're going to use a different feature of Bardeen that is really, really cool, and that's a web scraper. Usually when we use automations, we need to access tools through APIs to get data from that. But with a web scraper, what we can do instead is basically we can just, if we can find the information somewhere on a screen that we can look at, we can use the scraper to just extract the information from there. And as you know, we have an easy way to see our tweet stats, right? They are below every tweet, so it's pretty straightforward to extract them. Although we're actually not going to use the this view, because if we were to try to use the web scrape on this, we sometimes get some weird results, because in case something doesn't have likes or retweets, it sometimes looks a bit different. So I'm just trying to find something where there's nothing on there. And then, yeah, so here, for example, if you click on one with without one, right, you only have likes here and no retweets next to it if it only has retweets. So it's like a bit of a weird layout. So that is not ideal for web scraper, because you want that data looks always the same. But there is a small trick that we can use, and that is if we click on Tweet Analytics, we get a really nice view with all the insights. And as you can see up at the top, it's always the same URL. It's the tweet URL, and then afterwards Analytics. And we can use that to tell Bardeen to go to the URL of the tweet that we grabbed here, and then add analytics to it, and then scrape from there. So how exactly is this going to work? Well, first things first, we're going to click on Bardeen, and then we're going to click on Scraper. And we're going to create a scraper template. And that will tell Bardeen what information to look for. Now, the first thing is that it asks you whether you scrape from a single page or a list. The difference basically is if you have like a lot of entries and you want for every entry to extract the same information, you pick list or table. But in our case, we look always at one tweet, right? So we actually have the single page template. So I'm going to click on this one, and then I can name it. So I can just call this tweet stats, and then we can build it. And now I tell Bardeen what sort of information I would like to extract. As you can see, as I hover over this, it selects different elements, and I can simply click on them. So I'm going to click on the like here, on the number, and I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to say, okay, well, that's the likes for that entry. And if I move myself out of the way, you can see that Bardeen grabbed actually likes 8. Awesome. And if I continue, if I now grab the retweets, we see that it will also start adding the retweets in this database format. And for this one, actually, for our very simple example, that's all we want to grab. But as you can see, you can grab a whole lot more. You can grab the number of comments, the impressions, engagement, details, like a lot of things that you can get from there. And in the template that you can download for free in the description below, all of these additional metrics are also inside. But just for this quick video, we'll keep it at that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now we can simply click on Save Template, and we are good to go. Okay, we're nearly ready to build our final automation, but before we do that, we need to make a small modification to our Notion database and use a little helper automation. And that's because we don't want Bardeen to search for all our tweets all the time, right? We only want to search for the statistics for tweets where we haven't gotten any stats yet, and we only want to search for them if the tweet has passed a certain age. And that's simply because if you have like a ton of tweets, we want to reduce the load, because otherwise it will take forever for the automation to run. So in order to do this, as of now, we unfortunately need to do a little workaround because Bardeen itself still has a few limitations when it comes to the integration with Notion. So what we're going to do is we're going to create two properties here in Notion, and then we're going to use Make, another automation tool, to just do a very simple operation, and that will mean that we can then use Bardeen to get the statistics, and because we use Make only for little small steps, we can use the free plan there and don't need to use the paid plan. Okay, so what do I mean? The first thing we want to do is we want to create a checkbox property that is called stats collected ? Great. Then we will create a second property that will be called ready for stats ? And then we create a third formula property. Now, don't worry, it's a very simple formula. And if you want to learn how to write these formulas yourself, then check out the video in the description where I have a full masterclass on formulas. But for now, you can simply follow along, and I also include this formula in the blog post that's also linked down below for you to copy paste. So we're going to pick a formula property, and we're just going to call it helper formula. And what we're going to do is we want to first check whether stats were collected. Because stats were collected, then we don't want anything to happen. So we start with an if statement, and we say, okay, if stats collected equals true, then should be false. It should not return anything. And if stats have not been collected, let's for now say it should be true. So this just gives us this very simple thing where if we check this gets unchecked. Awesome. Now, we don't always, of course, want to collect stats if they haven't been collected. We want to wait 3 days, right? So for that, we're going to modify this further and say, okay, date add, give me the date here that we have when it was posted, and add 3 days to it. And then check whether that result is smaller or equal to now. And if that's the case, then again, it will check, otherwise it won't check. So we see now nothing really happened because they are all more than 3 days ago, but we can see now if I go in here and change this, let's say to the 13th, it's unchecked because now it's before. On the 12th, it actually is still unchecked because I record this in the morning and this one was posted in the afternoon, so 3 days have not passed yet, but on the 11th, the 3 days have passed and it will pull in information. Awesome. And again, ideally, at this point, we would just use Bardeen and say, okay, let's just filter my entries for this. But unfortunately, the Bardeen integration with Notion can't read formula results right now. So the formula property will not return anything. So there's no way for you to, in Bardeen, filter for only these ones. That's why we need to use Make, which is another awesome tool, my favorite automation tool for complex automations. And because, we only use it so little here, we can use the free plan to just tell Make, well, if this is checked, please check this one. And then we can use Bardeen to filter off this because a normal checkbox property is properly recognized. So to do so, we go over to Make. And again, link for Make is in the description. You can create a plan. Free plan is more than enough for this. And then we're going to create a scenario. That's what an automation is called in Make. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to hit that plus button to add our first app. And as you can see, we have a ton of apps here, and we want to search for Notion. Now, once I click on here, you see, similar to Bardeen, all the actions that I could do here. And what I want to do is I want to search objects. I want to search for all the entries in our database and see whether they have, our formula property is true. So first, I'm going to pick the correct workspace. Then we want to search for database items, that's correct. And then we can quickly look for our tweets database. Also, if you would like a full tutorial on either Make or Bardeen, like for beginners, and just like go through the individual steps, let me know down below in the comments. Then I know that that's something that would interest you. Okay, so now that we have our database ID, we can set up our filter. And what we want to filter for is we want to filter whether our helper formula is true. Right, so we're going to open the operators and we're going to scroll all the way down to the formula operators. And we want to see whether our checkbox, because that's what it returned, right, equals true. Okay, then we click on OK. And then we should always, need to click on OK here twice for whatever reason. The red thing means it's not happy yet. And then we can run our automation. And let's actually, just for the sake of this, to make sure that it works properly, mark only one. So we're going to take all of them and say, okay, we've collected stats for all of them, so it should only pull in one entry. So we're going to do right click this and say run this module only, and then see what it found. And we see, okay, it found one bundle. It found, and we can see, click on here, it found the tweet with the name. Oops, where's the tweet name somewhere? Here's the tweet. Text, Twitter Analytics, app in Notion is coming along nicely. Perfect. That's this entry. So this works properly, and what we want it to do now, let's uncheck all of these again. What we want this to do now is we want it to check our checkbox property that will then tell Bardeen to pull in the information. And for that, we simply add a second module. Think of this as the second action. And what we want to do is we want to update a database item. We want to update the entry that we just found, right? So again, we're going to pick our tweets database. Let's search for it. Tweets database. And the item that we want to modify is the one that we just found in the previous step. So as you can see, if I click in here, it gives me all the entries from all the information it returned from the previous step. And we want to pick our page ID. The page ID equals the database ID. And then we want to say, please, what I want you to do is the only thing I want you to do is to put ready for stats to yes. Awesome. So now let's move myself here and quickly run this whole operation once to see whether that works. And we can head over here and see how it slowly checks all the boxes. Perfect. So now we have our little small helper automation that will just make sure that we get over this hump, because again, otherwise you would run into real issues if you have a ton of entries. And as of now, Bardeen unfortunately doesn't support this one. So we just need to quickly use make in between. But now we are finally ready to build our Twitter Analytics automation. So for this, we're going to go back to Bardeen. So let's open it up and we're going to create our playbook. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to search through our Notion database, or like find Notion database pages, it's called here. So I click on find Notion items in our tweets database. And for the filter, we want to say, okay, only get the ones where it says ready for stats equals yes, right? That's our, that was the, if you remember, that was the one that we just checked with Bardeen. So now we can set here in Bardeen the filter, okay, only pull in things where this is equals yes. So you can click on OK here. And now, after finding the Notion database, we want to go to the link and scrape the analytics for it. Because remember, we pulled into our database the link to the tweet. Now, I hope you remember as well that this isn't the link exactly where we set up our scraper template. Instead, we set up the scraper template for the analytics page of an individual tweet. In order to do that, we first need to tell Bardeen that it's supposed to go to the analytics page. And we do that with a small action called merge. We're going to merge text. So we're going to combine the link with the end slug / analytics, and that will bring it to the correct page. Again, if Bardeen would already support that we can see formula results, then we could simply create a formula in Notion where we add the analytics to the end of the URL, but because it wouldn't see the result, we need to do it in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the text from our first action from the Notion database, and we're going to pick the data from there, and we're going to pick the data from the tweet link. And then we want to merge this together with /analytics. And we don't need to add anything else. That's all we want. Perfect. We don't want to replace anything. We don't want to add a separator between. We should go immediately after each other. So now we have our correct analytics link. And then we can add our final action where we now use the web scraper to get the information. So we're going to use the scrape data in background. So that means it won't open anything, right? You can also use Bardeen to scrape data on an active tab where you don't need to look at it, but we want to run this to run in the background. So let's say scrape data in the background, and we're going to first put in the link to the page where it should be scraped, and the link comes from the second action, the merge text. And our scraper template comes from the tweet stats scraper that we created. We have no limitation for items, right? We just want everything on that page. And then in incognito window, we want to set to no, because if it would be in incognito, then that means no cookies are installed, so Twitter might not open. Instead, Twitter might ask us to log in. So we click on done here. Now we have the information, and now we need to add that information to Notion. So last but not least, another new action, Notion, and now update Notion page in database. And we're going to pick, again, our initial database. We're going to pick the page that found in step 1. And then we can, again, map our data. So we can say, okay, the likes that you found, please use that from scrape data in background. And we see, okay, we have our likes here. Confirm. And we can, we have our retweets, scrape data in background, our retweets. And it will always ask you this please double check this, because as you can see, it recognizes that what it has here in Notion is a number property, but everything that gets scraped is recognized as a string. But it's really good at converting these data types. So in this case, with the simple example, this works properly. And last but not least, we want to set stats collected to yes, to make sure that we don't pull in information again. So now we click on OK, we name this. So collect tweet stats. I'm going to click on done. And then we can run it and see whether it actually works. Oh wait, I forgot one thing. We need to make sure that not only does it check that we collected stats, it is also supposed to uncheck the checkbox that pulls it into Bardeen automation, right? So our ready for stats thing should be no after it. That means A, it will have stats collected positive, so the make automation won't turn ready for stats into a yes, but we also need to make sure that it's a no first, because otherwise it would keep doing the same thing over and over again. So now we are ready for testing. And to run the test, we simply click on here and wait to see what happens. Now it will start scraping the data in the background, and it will take a few moments before we start seeing the information be pulled into the Notion database. But don't worry, we will schedule this afterwards, and then it just runs in the background and you don't need to look at this screen while it's happening. You can keep using your laptop to do other things. So let's just quickly see once when the information starts populating here. There we have it. You see the numbers go in, the ready for stats gets unchecked, and our stats collected gets checked. And now we have our likes in here. And if any of these tweets would have gotten any retweets, we would have the retweets in here as well. Perfect. Okay, that was the complex part. Now just time for some finishing touches. The first thing that we want to do here is we want to get one of these nice graphs that shows us our real-time follower growth in Notion. And what you see here is actually a preview of the template that you can download for free with a link in the description. So you can see it's basically the same setup that we have built here, but with a nicer UI, so that you get like this app-like feeling in Notion. You can browse your tweets, you can browse your statistics, you get your insights into your growth, and so on and so on. So it's actually fairly simple to get an automatically updating graph like this into Notion. I'm going to show you exactly how. We want to go back to our Twitter profile, quickly copy our Twitter profile link, and then open Bardeen and create a new scraper. This time we want to scrape our follower number. So let's call this current Twitter followers. And we want to grab our follower number. And that's it for this scraper template. Then we save the template, and so far, so good. So what we also need is a simple sheet in Google Sheets. And if I say simple, I mean simple. All we need is basically one column with the followers. So if you have both of these things set up, we can go to Bardeen and we can, let's click out of this quickly, create another playbook. And this time we're going to start with the scraper. Actually, let me quickly copy my profile link. And then we're going to start with scraping data in the background. We're going to put in the link to the page we just, to our profile page. And we're going to use the scraping template for our current Twitter followers. Perfect. And the next step will be to then simply add this to Google Sheets. So here we're going to pick the option Add Row to Google Sheet, and we will take our Twitter analytics, and we will add our followers to the follower part. And that's it. So let's name this current followers. Click on Done. Perfect. And then just click on it to quickly check that it works. Head on over. I already tested it here, as you can see, with that number. And then like another 1,250 should appear here any second. There it is. Okay. So now we have also the Bardeen automation that pulls the data in here. Actually, we can like quickly delete those last two ones. And the way we create a graph of this, it couldn't be simpler, right? We simply click on here and then we say insert chart. There we have it. Then we can format it, of course. And to embed it in Notion, all we need to do is click on the three dots, click on publish chart, and then publish. Yes, I'm sure. Copy this link. Go to Notion. So here's our Twitter analytics page, right? So let's go quickly here just to show you. And then the important thing is to not just paste it, because this will by default give you the Google Drive embed option that won't show the chart. So instead what you want to do is you want to type embed and then paste the link in here. And that way you get the actual chart. And again, it will be, once you resize it, something like this. Then you can, of course, also change the alignment. And now, if the chart updates with the automation, it will also update in here. It has a bit of a lag, right? It doesn't update instantaneous, but it will update at least every hour or so, which means if you have the other automation run daily to pull in your current Twitter followers, you get also a daily update on this chart. Last but not least, it's time to schedule automations so that they run without us having to click. For Bardeen, all we need to do is open our automation in the builder. But first, these are, as a quick reminder, these are the three automations, right, that we have in Bardeen. We add our tweets to Notion, then we collect stats for the tweets that are like at least 3 years old, and then we also grab our current followers. Now to schedule, just click on the three dots, open builder, and then add a step before the first step, and add the schedule option. So now we can pick different times. The one thing to consider when picking the time is that, as I said before, Bardeen runs locally on your machine. So if you schedule it during a time where where your laptop is not on, then Bardeen can't run. So you should schedule this during your normal work hours. So let's say I want to run this in the morning at 9 because that's when I'm on my laptop for sure. I want to repeat this daily, every day, and never stop. Done. What you notice is now we're under Autobooks, no longer under Playbooks. Bardeen distinguishes between like playbooks that happen when you click on them and autobooks that happen automatically. So that's why they are now under this toggle, and we need to also toggle it on to actually start it. But once we've done this, it will now run every time at 9 in the morning. Awesome. Let's do the same for the collecting the stats. So here we can say open in builder. Let's maybe schedule this for 12. You could of course like schedule it for the same time because again, they don't really rely on each other. Let's click on done. And then we would do the same thing also for the current follower number. Our make automation needs to be scheduled as well, and that is fairly simple too. All we need to do is click on that time icon, and now we can set the scheduling settings. So here we would also say run this please every day, and we want to run this. It doesn't really matter because if we run it every day with the other one, right, we say like after 3 days we want to collect stats. So we are kind of sure that like we have like it runs properly, but still I would say that it should run in between the first automation where we grab the tweets and the second automation where we look for the stats. So let's say something like 9:45 sounds like a good idea. Click on OK, and then you can click on the scheduling button down here to turn it on. And that's it. Now all these automations will automatically pull your new tweets into Notion. they will grab the analytics and add them to Notion, and you will also get an automatically updating graph for your follower growth in Notion. So there you have it, your personal Twitter app in Notion. If you have any remaining questions, please don't hesitate to ask them down below in the comments. I'll be sure to answer every single one of them. Also, just as a reminder, this template, if you want to download it for free, again, also in the description. Last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, it would be awesome if you could give it a thumbs up. That really helps out the channel. And if you want to make sure that you never miss a video like this, where I teach you how to leverage Notion and automations to make the most out of your workspace, then make sure to follow this channel. See you in the next one.